Dr. Suzuki said, "To teach is to touch someone for life." And with the Suzuki Organ method, you get all the skills and tools you need as a teacher to teach any child to play the organ.
I'm sure that Suzuki Organ has a bright future.
1997 was the year everything started, the development of the worldwide Suzuki method on the church organ. This film will describe ups and downs in the development of the method and the benefits of using the method. Or, as Gunilla says,
everybody can. In the Suzuki method, this is the most important one of the cornerstones. Everybody can. By practicing the right way and get the right tools, everybody can learn almost anything. It's all a matter of time spent to learn. But everyone will ultimately be able to play beautifully. Because it is like this. When you show that you believe in a person, he or she will manage. And in the same way, when it comes to yourself, what you think you will be or do tomorrow will happen, just if you believe in it and work for it.
Who is Gunilla Rönnberg? A pianist with all 5 degrees as a Suzuki piano teacher, or an organist who developed the Suzuki method for organ, or Suzuki teacher trainer in the Suzuki Organ method. She has been head of a culture house, head of a music and culture school, and head of the culture administration. She started to teach piano by the Suzuki method in 1987, and 10 years later, in 1997, she was working as a church musician in the Church of Glanshammar. It all began with Anna Eklund, the vicar in Glanshammar.
Do you remember, Gunilla, when I asked you, why don't you start the Suzuki method for the church organ?
Yes, I remember that very clearly. And it was you who came up with the idea. And nobody had ever before thought about to teach the children the church organ. And that was in the spring of 1997.
And I remember that even you thought it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I thought it was. I was surprised actually, because I haven't thought about that before. And in the same time, I started an education to become an organist. And I really felt that I wanted my piano students to also have the possibility to play the organ. So in 1998, I asked several organists if anyone wanted to join me in this work. And my organ teacher at that time, Lars Hagström, who also was a visionary person, said, "This is a great idea."
Well, why did I thought this was a great idea? I think my first reaction was kids, they don't reach the pedals. Perhaps they don't have this maturity to play this great instrument. But then I went home, I slept over it, and when I woke up next morning I thought, of course, let's do it. This is a great idea. Kids in preschool age, they learn language, they learn how to handle a bicycle, they learn almost everything connected to movements. Then I thought organists are very old-fashioned. And I have never felt old-fashioned, so I thought, let's kick some ass.
The common idea at that time was that you were supposed to play the piano for 10 years and be a teenager before you even started to play the organ. So in February, I contacted a man who was in the board for the International Suzuki Association, Hauker Hannesson.
I met Gunilla Rönnberg in 1998. She came to Gävle, where I was living. Gävle is a city in Sweden. And I was at the time the chief executive officer of the Gävle Symphony Orchestra. I was also the chairman of the European Suzuki Association and that was the reason why Gunilla came to talk to me.
I happened to work in Gävle Symphony Orchestra, so we met in the lobby of the concert hall just before the concert. So in a black long dress, I spoke very enthusiastic about the brilliant idea of developing the Suzuki method for the church organ.
She presented her ideas about developing the organ for the Suzuki method and showed me some material she had worked on prior to our meeting. I was impressed with her work, and I asked her to get some more material that I could take to the board meeting of the International Suzuki Association. At the time, I was also board member of the International Suzuki Association, and I was on my way to Japan, to the city of Matsumoto, for a board meeting that was being held there. And to make a long story short, I took Gunilla's material to Japan. I presented it to the board of directors, and they approved a development project with Gunilla's material and with her as a project manager to develop Suzuki method for organ.
During the summer 1998, I contacted organ builders because I wanted someone to build a pedal extension, but no one was interested. But in August, when I mentioned this for a father of one of my piano students, Jan-Erik Malmström, he said that he could make one. So in 1 week he had made the first pedal extension.
Kan du bara spela melodin en gång och sen håll dig här inne och sen står du på fingertopparna. Vid skogskanten här får du vara.
Then I asked 6 of my Suzuki piano students who were between 8 and 10 years old if they wanted to start to play the organ. And I also started with 6 beginners in age 5 to 6 years old. So in September, I started with 12 organ students in the church of Glanshammar and St. Michael's Church in Örebro. The organist in St. Michael's Church, Carl Wikenstål, was very helpful and interested. His 8-year-old daughter also began to play the organ for me.
Many who heard about Gunilla's project said afterwards that they never thought it would work. To quote an authority at the time, Gunilla says that she will make the Suzuki method for the organ. Is she joking or what?
Sen är det ju också så att det är inte alltid lätt att komma åt kyrkorglar för att öva. Och man kan ju bara leka med tanken om man har en 5-åring och så åker man 1 mil och så är det 30 grader kallt ute och kyrkan är nätt och jämnt uppvärmd och så är det larm som ska stängas av och det är överhuvudtaget ganska komplicerat. Så jag tror att förutsättningen för att man ska lyckas är att man kan sitta och öva hemma.
Lars Hagström had an idea of a portable practice organ that could be easily put apart and fit in a small car like IKEA organ. So he contacted an organ builder in the north of Sweden, Sven-Erik Holmlund, who delivered a manual from Viscount. And the piano father, Jan-Erik Malmström, built a bench and a manual stand according to the idea of how the bench for looms work to raise and lower, with sticks in holes at different heights. And he also built an organ pedal, and Hagström put magnets and diodes to create the sound. And in November we could show the first home practice organ. At the same time, Malmström, the piano father, also got the whole village to help him move a house to his plot, which he turned into a workshop so he could continue to make extension pedals and organs. And of course his daughter was one of the piano students who had begun to play the organ instead. During the last 10 years, I have been using single pedal extensions instead. This kind of pedals optimizes the space for the teacher, since you put the extensions just on the pedals for the actual piece. When the teachers sit to the left of the students and show 1 octave down on the original pedals, they get a much better ergonomic playing position. The single pedals are easier to handle because they are lighter and can be handled by a child and not by 2 adults, as with the other extensions. And they are also easy to adjust, so you can teach on different organs with the same pedals. In January, I went with all the organ students and their parents to the Folk High School in Hjo and had a concert. The children made a success. During this year, we had also put together a draft of educational material for beginners up to college level. And in February 1999, we sent it to Haukur Hannesson.
I went back to Japan for another meeting of the International Suzuki Association, the board of directors, that is. And I took the material that Gunilla had been working on during the year, which included films of her teaching and of her students. And at that meeting in Matsumoto in 1999, in the spring of 1999, the board of directors of the International Suzuki Association accepted the organ as a Suzuki instrument. It was a very pleasant day. I was really happy that the board accepted this. I was impressed with Gunilla's work, and I have been ever since. And I think that the Suzuki organ is a very important addition to the Suzuki method. The organ has not had a special teaching method, especially aimed at young children. So Gunilla's work filled a void not only for the Suzuki method, but also for the organ in general.
In the 30s, the Japanese violinist Shinichi Suzuki once was asked to teach a 4-year-old boy to play the violin. For a while, he thought about how to do this. But one day it struck him that all children learn to speak their native language by listening and imitating from an early age. He thought that this must be the best way to learn, and that was the start of the Suzuki method, which he improved constantly during his whole life. It spread all over the world, and it's also developed on many different instruments. An organ was the 12th instrument.
My name is Carl van Wijk. I want to say a few words about the Suzuki method. I know about the method and have witnessed it firsthand for a long time because my wife, Nicolette Solomon, actually initiated the program of Suzuki in South Africa. So I was able to witness what the Suzuki method could actually do. I was amazed actually at the rapid progress that students had, and I was amazed at the technical facility and the expertise that developed quite quickly.
How did you get the idea that we could apply money for this project?
Everything costs, and I knew that there was a lot of money at the Diocese of Strängnäs and the Diocese of Skara. So I thought that if we have a plan for 10 years, they will think that we are serious. So we asked them to come to Glanshammar and visit us.
Yeah, and you told me to make a plan, and I wrote a plan how to publish the organ school and how to start with the teacher training courses and also to spread the method all over the world.
Yes, but you needed some home practice organs because it was quite difficult to get access to the churches for the children to let them practice at the church organs. So we applied at the diocese for home practice organs so the children can practice at home between the lessons that you gave them.
Yeah, and it was also the parish of Örebro that gave us money for home practice organs.
Yes, and I think it was those two devoted persons, Linnea Stensson and Dan Häggström, so they thought that it was a brilliant idea to have Suzuki method for church organs.
Yeah, and also the Diocese of Strängnäs, they gave us money for 6 home practice organs for the students in Glanshammar.
Yeah.
So we had in total 12 organs for 12 students. So that was very good.
Yeah, and the children was so happy for playing at home, and they also got the access in Glanshammar's church and played the organ at the services.
And also it was so good because it was tiring for them also, and for the parents to go to the church and practice at least 2 times a week. So this was really one of the keys to success of this method for the organ.
Gunnel Fagius, an engaged woman at the National Church of Sweden, employed me and Lars Hagström 20% each for 5 years to work with the development of the method. So it is the Swedish Church that has financed the development of the Suzuki organ method. I made a lot of fun things with my organ students. In addition to playing concerts in different churches, I arranged many summer courses where they got lessons in choir song, piano accompaniment, organ, rhythmics, and so many things. And on these courses we made other fun stuff like playing softball, barbecue, swimming, just getting together. This is so important because then the students also bond and get an identity as an organ group. And this is from the concert on the summer course. It is Emily Angerstjärna, 11 years old, who is playing. Once we had a concert on a square in a small town called Kumla, where Björn Friman, amongst others, played Fugue, D minor, by Bach. We worked according to the 10-year plan. In 2001, we started the first teacher training education at the music college in Piteå in the north of Sweden. Since then, I had teacher training courses every year at the music colleges in Sweden until 2011. It was courses during 1 year with 6 two-days on-campus seminars, ending with an exam for the European Suzuki Association. I had also 10 days teacher training courses in Chicago and Salt Lake City. 2002, I was invited to an international Suzuki convent in Minneapolis to teach and speak about the organ method. In 2004, I was in Chicago, Los Angeles and London holding lectures and workshops. My daughter Madeleine, then 11 years old, was playing during my lectures 20 different pieces from 4 books to show the progression in the organ Suzuki literature. And since then I have been to Turin, Esbjerg, Oslo, Cambridge, Sydney, Copenhagen, Strasbourg, Brussels and numerous towns in Sweden. Lars Hagström and I worked for 13 years, trying out on our students the best pedagogical literature from beginners in Book 1 to college-level literature in Book 8. Every piece should introduce a new difficulty. In the start, I was the expert on the literature for the beginners and the young children, and Lars Hagström, who is a diploma organist and had taught for many years in organist educations, picked out the literature for the older students.
Important for me, most important of all, was everything shall be funny to play. So I picked music that I thought you can learn from, you can have fun with.
In the beginning of Book 1, we start with non-legato pieces because it helps the students to relax in the hands and avoid tensions. Then we introduce the legato playing, and from that point every second piece is legato. In this way, the students become experts on distinguish the different ways of playing. Lars Hagström had an idea of putting phonetic signs over the notes in the non-legato pieces to indicate the differentiated articulation. This, of course, is the same as in the recordings that the children listen to. In this way, the children get a sense for how to play differentiated.
I got the idea of the phonetic signs from my language lessons in school. And since my opinion is that music is a language, and if you read a poem or if you read a book in an auditorium, you have to speak clearly.
From the first piece in Book 1, you play with both hands and feet, although it's long pedal notes in the beginning. But between the manual pieces, there are pedal melodies where you develop the technique in the feet. Some pieces have the melody also in the pedal, with long chords in the hands. And in the end of Book 1, the pedal part in the manual pieces starts to move more, so it becomes polyphonic. For all the pieces, there are also recordings for the students to listen to. Lars recorded all the pieces in Book 1 to 5, and most of the pieces in Book 6, where also I recorded some of them. Lars started to record some pieces in Book 7 and 8 too, but because of lack of time, we asked Jeremy Chessman at the Missouri State University if he could make the recordings. So he was very helpful and made an enormous work and recorded the most of the pieces in Book 7 and 8. And now the complete Suzuki Organ School, 8 books with recordings, has been published by Alfred Publishing in the US.
I want to say a few words about the books now, about the Suzuki Organ books. I have taught books 1, 2, 3 and a bit of book 4. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that book 1 is a masterpiece. The choice of repertoire and the scaling and the grading is brilliant. It just works. It just works. From the very first piece that has a pedal in it, which kids just get, they just get it, to the last piece in book 1, and then moving on to book 2 and the lovely repertoire that goes like Goodbye to Winter and ending up with that very beautiful piece at the end by Charpentier. I think the grading, the choice of music, the editing, it's just brilliant. I am thoroughly impressed with those 2 books.
In 2011, when I put fingering to the organ pieces in Book 7 and 8, I got a scholarship for the first time from the Swedish Mediterranean Institute to stay and work for 3 weeks at Axel Munte's villa San Michele on the island of Capri in Italy.
Axel Munte was a Swedish physician, author and architect who built this villa in Anna Capri in the end of the 19th century. He donated it to the Swedish state, and he wrote in his will that it should be a place for artists and scientists and journalists and other guests to stay. Guests who could be assumed to share his feelings for Italy, for the classical culture, as well as the humanistic research.
The estate has many guest apartments where Swedish citizens with artistic professions have the opportunity to stay and work.
The villa has also a beautiful garden and a museum, and it's a fantastic experience to visit, and I recommend it if you come to Italy.
From the garden and the Egyptian Sphinx, you have an astonishing view over the mountains, the town of Capri, and the harbor Marina Grande. On the other side of the Bay of Naples, you can see the mainland with the volcano Mount Vesuvio, with the ruined city of Pompeii below.
During the years, organists all over the world have reached out to me and asked how they can study to become Suzuki organ teachers. And I had an idea that the most efficient way to make teacher training would be through web education, since many live on the other side of the world. And of course, it's so much cheaper also for the trainees.
When I met my husband, Kjell Hedenström, who besides his job as head of planning and technical administration also is a good filmmaker, I talked about this. And he was very positive about filming the web education, which made me decide to realize it. A web teacher training education in both Swedish and English.
Welcome to Villa San Michele, Axel Munte's paradise.
In March 2013, we had once again received a scholarship to stay 3 weeks at Villa San Michele on Capri to start the work with writing and filming the web teacher training education. My husband Kjell filmed and edited all videos. And it was completed in January 2015 when I published the material and made the web education available.
Children love to play with both their hands and feet, and the sound of an organ registered in tutti makes the roof of the church lift just by playing a simple tune in the melody and a couple of bass notes in the pedals. To work with the Suzuki method with children is like working with all the possibilities art and music give the humanity.
The web education is structured exactly as the university courses have been. It's divided in 5 episodes, and you study 1 episode at a time. This is how you work with the first episode.
Now I will make a summary of the homework for episode 1. First, I want you to study the folder. For every subject, there is a text document with specific information about the subject. Study it thoroughly. And then watch the film where I play the Twinkle Variations and piece number 2 to 7. Study carefully how I make the pedagogical moves and begin to practice the pieces in the same way, but each hand separately, so you can watch your own hands and see that you are relaxed. Then study the teaching points for each piece and write them down in your own music. Make notes about the teaching points in every bar. And then to learn more efficiently by heart, you can turn on the music in the background every day.
In the videos in the web education, I play, show and explain exactly how to teach every organ piece, so it doesn't become difficult for the students to understand, remember and perform.
We work from the beginning in the Suzuki Organ method with simultaneous releases in the non-legato pieces. So in the first book we train just until the simultaneous release, and there we lift and stop and check that it was correct.
I show how you work with relaxation and technique, so you prevent the usual faults. It saves so much time later if you learn the right movements from the beginning.
When you start to teach small children to play the pedals, it is much easier to make them feel how they push down the pedal with the foot if you let the children play in socks. You must speak about the movement of the hand and the feet when you press down and release a key or a pedal.
In the web education, I also describe how to make the lessons fun for small children, and also how to encourage the students and make them feel good about themselves and successful, and enjoy both the lessons and the practicing at home. It is the same approach as in leadership situations. It's a matter of both pointing out what is good and how it's possible to improve. So if you become a Suzuki teacher, you become in the same time a good leader. And I want to emphasize that the approach in the Suzuki method can be used for all ages and in all teaching situations. The Suzuki pieces guarantee the technical development, but I have also arranged other material for students to play in between the Suzuki pieces, just for fun. Everyone who has undergone the teacher training for me says that they have become better to play themselves through the exercises I teach them to show their students. And now organists all over the world study the Suzuki organ methodology through the web education. 2013, when me and my husband moved to Skåne in the south of Sweden, I realized that we could make an organ training center here, Lärkvallen Training Center. Here I give lessons if someone wants to work on specific issues or have a follow-up course after have taken the web education. I have also had children coming here from different countries to have organ lessons, since the families have taken the opportunity for a vacation in Sweden at the same time. We live just 25 minutes from the coast in a fabulous landscape.
I ended up working in churches in South Africa, playing the organ for probably 35 years. And eventually I came to America and started working at Suzuki, at the Suzuki Institute of Dallas in 2002, where I taught composition and music theory. And then I heard about Gunilla teaching a virtual course, an online course, which I immediately subscribed to and took the course. And then I realized I need actually to go and study with her. So about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I went to Sweden, went to Gunilla in Ängelholm, and I studied books 1 and 2, came back to Dallas and applied the knowledge that I had.
I advise you to follow up this web education with a 5 days course here at Lärkvallens Training Center. Because then you will get feedback both on your performing skills and your teaching skills. And there is a lot of things to discuss about teaching. And I promise you that this course will be very useful for you.
A couple of years ago, I moved away from my students to the south of Sweden, where I started Lärkvallen Training Center. And in the spring last year, the British Suzuki Association asked me if I had an organ student that could participate in the big Suzuki Gala concert at the Royal Albert Hall in the Easter 2016. So in September, I started with interactive web lessons once a week with a student called Olle. And here we are in London, and in 2 days he will play Prelude of Charpentier at the Royal Albert Hall. It has been most interesting to develop this way of teaching, and I'm sure that this is the future for global education. And the next step is virtual reality, and it is fast, fun and functional. It's good to be back.
So now, 2019, I am so grateful to the Swedish Mediterranean Institute that we for the 3rd time have got the opportunity to stay and work at Villa San Michele, this time to make a film about the development of the Suzuki organ method. It's impressive to think of everything that has happened during all these years. The most inspiring is the ripple effect, the accomplishment of so many of my Suzuki organ trainees and their achievements after their Suzuki teacher exam. The benefits of the development of the Suzuki Organ method has been amazing. I have always encouraged everyone who has been studying for me to publish own educational material for children because more is needed. And several organists have done that, which is incredibly good.
In 2002, two very enthusiastic women, Karin Sundin and Helene Dahlén, noticed the Suzuki Organ method. They lived and worked in northern Sweden, where also one of my first Suzuki teacher trainees lived, Annelise Lindberg Sjödin. So they started to cooperate with her. Their work developed over the years with pedagogical groups for organists and summer courses for children and teenagers in Mellansel. Annelise eventually also published a lot of organ teaching materials for children. Karin Sundin has worked hard during these years to find funding from foundations and the Swedish Church for all projects that have given opportunities for children to play the organ. Amongst many organists in the north of Sweden who have worked dedicated with the Suzuki Organ method, I want to mention Mats Ternvall and Maria Axel.
The Suzuki Organ method trains the children to listen carefully, and it's important as you often have several voices to keep track of when playing the organ. I have time to teach 5 students, and I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I have also been teaching at organ summer courses for many years. One of my students got 3rd prize in an international organ competition. Some of my students have continued at the College of Music, and some of them now work as organists.
Other Suzuki organ teachers in Sweden who have published material for children is Helena Ambertsson and Robert Öhman. And in the United States we have Carl van Wyk, who took the web education. He is an organist and professor in theory and composition at the Suzuki Music Institute in Dallas.
My involvement with the Suzuki Organ method has been an interesting journey for me because I've been involved also in the development of 3 Suzuki organs. I call them Suzuki organs because my intention was always to teach. And the one that I'm sitting at the moment was my 3rd attempt. 3 manuals, pedal board, crescendo pedal and 2 swirl pedals, and all driven by Hauptwerk. The second area that has been interesting for me and an interesting part of my journey of organ learning has been arrangement of music, specifically for my students, and specifically to enable them to get their hands around what would be an impossible task. For example, big chords, awkward pedal work, out of range pedal work where their legs are not long enough to get there, get to the notes, etc., etc. So I have made a huge amount of music.
And also in the United States, Ernest Senoniani, who took the teacher training course in Chicago 2004, became, besides me, the 2nd member of the International Suzuki Organ Committee, representing the American continent. David Clark became the 3rd member of the International Suzuki Organ Committee in 2016, representing Australia. From the beginning, he was a Suzuki piano teacher trainer who started Suzuki Organ more than 10 years ago. He teaches children and teenagers with fantastic results and have teacher training courses in Australia.
My name is Guðný Einarsdóttir and I am organist in Háteigskirkja in Reykjavík. And I went to Sweden for 1 year and finished the Suzuki teacher training program in the year of 2010. And this year was very inspiring and encouraging for me as a church organist and a teacher. I've been working as a church organist and teaching the organ and the piano since. In the year 2015, I made a project with 2 other people, a composer and an artist, where we made a musical adventure about the organ pipes living in the organ house. This musical adventure has been one of the most joyful things I've done in my career. It's been very nice. We published it as a book and a CD, and then we have made a lot of shows around the country and also abroad. And I definitely think that my year in Sweden encouraged me to go this path, because when I was there, me and my fellow students were discussing a lot about how to inspire people, how to get them interested, how to introduce the organ and open it up, this complicated world, in a funny and creative way. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that opportunity I had there.
The Suzuki organ training has really helped me become a better teacher with my Suzuki students, of course, but also with my college students. It gave me really specific things that I could focus on in the lessons and ways to phrase things so that students can learn to the best of their ability. And so it works with my college students, with my young students, and it's also helped me to become a better person and learn how to relate to people better by living the Suzuki philosophy. I got my Suzuki training during my doctoral work, and that really helped focus what I wanted to write my dissertation on, which was organ pedagogy for young children, and Suzuki organ was a big part of that. So since then, it has become my primary research area, pedagogy, not just with Suzuki, but in other forms as well. And so over the past decade or so, it's really informed my research and the work that I do at the university.
And in Peru, there is Carlos Lopez Bonifacio, who took the web education some years ago. He has created an organ teaching center in the boys' school he's in charge for, in the mountains in Peru, 3,676 meters above the sea, in a town called Huancavelica, and many, many more all over the world.
Y agradezco también a la profesora Gunilla desde Suecia, que promueve el método Suzuki Organ. Ojalá muchos niños puedan aprender el órgano, que es un instrumento clásico, el rey de los instrumentos. Muchas gracias, un saludo desde el Perú a todos y gracias, y ojalá que se difunda mucho Suzuki Organ. Este es el órgano que recién hemos instalado en el seminario y ustedes lo están viendo, y quisiéramos que más niños puedan tocar.
I really appreciate what Gunilla has done, and I wish and hope that this fabulous initiative can go forward and be hugely successful, because it really deserves to be. I love the sound of the organ. I know that the sound of the organ is appealing to so many people, and I wish her every success with her initiatives and getting this method really to be very successful.
I want to end as I began, with Shinichi Suzuki's words, "To teach is to touch someone for life." And with these words, I wish you good luck, and go out and spread your knowledge and contribute to a better world. See you again.
Repetition is the mother of knowledge.